We are here for Witness to History. Today's Sunday, April 11th, 2021. I'm not going to try to keep up with what number of Witness to History we are on because, it's less than 10, but more than 6. All right, I'll keep up with that. But welcome everyone, and we're going to have a fun conversation today with the Montgomery family, with Chiquita and Crystal Montgomery. Hello, hello.
Hello.
How
Yeah,
are you?
good. How are you?
Oh, fine.
Good.
Good.
Well, before we get started, of course, I always say thank you to a few people. As you know, we record Witness to History, and the recording is housed in the history section of the library, thanks to Megan Hayes. So I'd like to thank Megan for keeping our histories alive for whomever may be interested in looking at any of the interview. And I'd like to thank, of course, Kevin and Lee, and of course, John, because he's behind the controls here and keeps us looking like, we won't make any mistakes if you leave it up to me. All right. So again, I want to say hello to Crystal and Chiquita. And Witness to History is a way for us just to get to know our neighbors a little bit better in the Moreland community. So I'm going to tell you just a little story. When I started coming to neighbor night a few years ago, I remember meeting Chick. I said, oh, okay, we can get to meet our neighbors. And then we were on a neighbor night a few months ago, and I'm just sitting there. I usually come on a few minutes late, and I'm like, okay, let me look around and see who's here. And I see Crystal. And I'm going, wait a minute. I know Crystal. We're on a Cleveland Restoration Society committee together. And I said, oh, and I'm sending her a private chat. I didn't know you lived in Moreland. And so Crystal says, yes, I live on Lefty. I'm like, oh, isn't that nice? Then Kevin says, you know that Crystal and Chick are sisters. I'm like, no, get out of here. I had no idea. So we're going to start with your story tonight. We're going to start with your story. So tell us how you all came to Moreland. Tell us your story when you were, a bit younger. Either one of you can start with that story. How about you, Chick, since you're the older sister?
Yes. Okay. John, I can't see the view for all three of us. Okay, here we go. Yes, our family moved to Moreland on Ludgate in 1964. We don't know the exact decisions from our parents as to why we landed there, but it's very good for us as growing up and getting educated that we did live in Shaker and go through Moreland, Woodbury, and Shaker. And we walked to Moreland Elementary. Mm-hmm. And I started there in 3rd grade and Crystal's in 1st grade. Mm-hmm. I would say that I really glad that I got lived in Shaker and got educated in Shaker. And yes, there's a lot of memories, but it's just interesting how the cycle goes around as to us living there. And then I moved back in 2007, and then moving back, getting involved with the community and just really loving Shaker again.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So you went to Moreland. That was one of the things that really attracted me to the Moreland community because it was a neighborhood school. My children could walk to school. And so my children and you as sisters have something in common. Crystal, tell me a little bit about some memories that you may have of Moreland Elementary School, what we know now as our library. Mm-hmm.
Well, I definitely remember walking to school in February. We moved in February, so we had to walk in the cold, getting started. I remember 4th grade and I remember 6th grade. But one of the things, yes?
Yes, go on. Go right ahead.
I was going to say one of the things I have, I guess the better memory was from 6th grade when I had to paint a mural. Well, I was always, art class was part of the curriculum. So when the service center was built, I've always been interested in the service center now that I'm grown. But anyway, at the time, I didn't know that much about the service center being built. But there was a lot of controversy behind the service center being built. But what the city did was they gathered the elementary school kids I was in 6th grade, and they had us paint murals to cover up the construction of the service center. So there I am in the basement of Moreland painting my photograph.
That's wonderful.
And
That's so nice.
I painted a library.
Oh, wow.
I didn't send you the picture of that because it looks really distorted, like a kid drew it.
Okay. That is interesting, a project for the Moreland students. And I mean, it kind of we all know the service center. So, it'd be nice to see that mural. I wonder what happened to it. I wonder, it was up there to conceal the construction of
Yeah, to kind of beautify it with paintings from the kids, and everybody would love it. Oh, there's paintings, kids. Isn't that cute?
Yeah, yes, that's wonderful.
And that's my class there. I can see Marianne Kelly and Nancy Bope and Jimmy Peoples.
Oh, that's nice.
And I can't see all the others. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you all graduated from Moreland and then went to Woodbury Junior High. So many people, of course, we know Woodbury, we know it as our, I guess we call it intermediate, 5th and 6th grade school at this time. But some memories about your experiences at Woodbury. Either one of you have experiences at Woodbury?
Okay, I'll go. Woodbury, that was when I was starting to get more into art. I had a good influence from a teacher, Mr. Carl Crable. And also I was excelling and liking English and writing papers and grammar. But in elementary school, I also liked spelling and reading and vocabulary. And also, once we started going to Woodbury, we're seeing more and more integration with the students. And and even before we went to junior high, we were learning as we went out into different parts of Shaker that we see bigger houses and, figuring out, that you have to have more money in order to have the bigger houses. So it was interesting to learn, the differences as far as income. And so it was a matter of getting adjusted and learning more students, but the experience to me was positive and good because I just, like I said, we just had a good opportunity.
And that's interesting because as children, we're only but so mobile. We go, you walk to school, you don't really go very far. And right within the community, of course, you found that everybody's experience was not the same, nor, was the composition of your school the same across the district. Do you have memories, Crystal, of your experiences at Woodbury?
Yes, I do. I think one of my first memories was wayfinding, because I noticed that the center of the school had 3 stories and the 2 wings had 2 stories, and they weren't at the same elevation. So I started learning my way around where I was in a building, what was above me, what was below. I guess it's the start of, architecture.
Yes, I was getting ready to say, you're all righty, I can hear it.
Because when you're in the center section, you either had to go up to get to the 2nd floor of the wing or down to get to the 1st floor of the wing, because it's more so in the basement. And another thing that helped us get to know some other people in Shaker was attending my brother's Little League games. Those games are so much fun to watch, but it also had other people come that were of different income than us and from different elementary school areas. So we got to know some of them, and they were very nice. Everyone was very nice. And I remember one lady in particular wanted to befriend my mother a little bit closer, but that wasn't going to work too well because we couldn't show up at their house, our little Chevrolet, somewhat beat up, in this nice, lovely, big driveway, and getting mistaken for the help, and said, this isn't going to work.
Oh, interesting.
So backed away from that friendship, didn't take it any closer for that reason.
We're going to hear that story another time. Okay.
Okay.
All righty. Okay. Well, where were the Little League games? Take us back, to that time. Where were they played? Was it Shaker Little League? Were they just?
Yes, it was Shaker Little League, and we would play at different locations. I remember playing at the high school, their baseball diamond. I remember going to Mercer a lot. I
Hmm.
remember that. And I'm not sure where else we went, but I remember definitely Mercer. And
Yes.
probably, I think Byron, they played there too.
Yep.
I
Okay.
know it is Byron's middle school, I guess now.
Right, right, right. That's interesting because when Shelton Park opened up several years ago, that was a regulation little league ballpark.
Mhm.
And so there would be games. Our street would be filled with cars. We would know when there were games. There are no games there anymore. There are
Oh,
no,
Right.
no, it is not for several years, not for several years.
hmm.
Okay, well, let's go to Shaker High School real quick. Uh, Chick, I see that you had again another teacher influence you towards your interest in art. Can you tell us?
Yes, and I just wanted to clarify if people kind of missed, we have a brother who's in between us. His name is Ed. Okay, so yeah, so once I'm in high school, teacher James Hoffman was another influencer as far as art, and the classes that we had were unconventional. We worked on different types of projects. We did art history. The one that really stuck with me was a marketing graphic design project where we actually designed logos, and he gave us names of company, and we made a logo and a whole marketing
No.
project. And so that really influenced me to move on to college and pursue graphic design as
Mm,
a career. Also in high school, um, English class, excelled because I liked reading, I liked learning vocabulary and um, Shakespeare. So it was always art and English that I liked.
mhm.
And I was just able to manage through math and science. And so social studies was good. I liked that a lot also. But yeah, it was good to have the big influencer to help me move
Oh,
on.
yes, yes.
Hmm.
You know, that's interesting because as you say math and science, then I guess Crystal, you maybe you picked up on that with your architecture background. How was math and science for you?
Well, I did start taking some science classes that I normally wouldn't have taken, like physics. So I took that. It was okay. Was my favorite, and I'd take it again in college, and it was still okay. But one thing I did take was mechanical drafting.
Mm,
So I was afraid of being in the classroom with all boys because typically all the boys would take that class. But I signed up for it anyway, and then I get in the class, and then there's two more girls in there, which is good. So I
mhm.
felt much better. And the professor we had, Mr. Zetnik, he was great. He was a stern guy, but very, very nice and precise. And I mean, he was just a good teacher. So I
Definitely.
think I did well in his class. And things,
Mhm,
even though it was mechanical drawing, we still learned isometric drawings, and that's something you do in architecture also. So,
mhm, mhm.
and somehow I missed a class, I guess, because I saw someone in the window had displays of models built. And I said, who did this? How come I didn't know about it?
Oh, okay. So you
So I
couldn't
missed
find that
something.
out yourself. Oh, that's interesting. So that's
Yeah.
nice. You know, I mean, just to say, well, the high school really influenced what you did in life. You know, the exposure. I always think, you know, Shaker has a little bit of everything. So
Mhm.
that's, you know, that's always good. But let's go back to your child. Tell me a little bit about the music school settlement. What did you all do, extracurricular activities? I remember both of you said that you had the experience there. Chick, you want
Yes, I was playing the violin, and I started in elementary school and playing in the orchestra there. And since I liked it, our mom let us go to Cleveland Music Settlement, where
to?
we could get private lessons and excel with our instruments as well as we could. And then you also take music theory.
Mhm.
So I played in the junior high orchestra, but I think, and then I think around 10th grade, I quit because I wasn't really that interested anymore in playing the violin. I was more into art.
Art. Mhm.
Yes.
Your passion. How about you, Crystal?
My
How,
experience is a little different.
what was your experience? All right.
My mother liked piano, so she wanted me to play piano. So I had to take piano lessons. And before the lessons started, we had to take theory. So this is where you had to kind of sing the scales, and I couldn't sing.
Okay.
So here's my brother and sister, they're in the same class and they're in the background laughing at me because I can't sing. But I did not like playing the piano, and I asked my mother if I could stop, and eventually I did,
Okay.
especially when I said, "You're just wasting your money."
She couldn't tell though. You must have been doing okay. She probably
Uh,
loved listening to you
and
play.
another thing about going to the music school settlement, that my mother worked on Saturdays. So there was no one else around, tend to the kids. So this was something for us to do while she was at work. So
Mhm.
she would drop us off and then we take the bus home. And sometimes we would, not take the bus right away. And then my brother, he would start playing ball with some guys. It's funny how a bunch of guys get together and they can start playing ball and become friends instantly. And, us females, we don't do it quite the same.
Okay, yeah, all righty. Well, you just mentioned your mother. You said that she would worked on Saturdays. What did your mother do?
She, oh, we're supposed to go in order?
Oh, no, you can go ahead.
Okay. She was a barber. She
Mm-hmm.
owned her own business. She had Montgomery's Barbershop, and she had three different locations. She started at 79th and Kinsman, and there's another barbershop in that area, and we got to know them and their kids. And there's a beauty shop there. So eventually, she moved up to closer to Shaker Heights, still in Cleveland,
Mm-hmm.
maybe around 140 something.
That's funny.
And then she moved to another location practically across the street at 140, no, 158th.
Right around
And
the.
this picture is the 158th location.
Mm-hmm. Mention,
And
mention out loud who that is in the picture. Your mother, of course.
that's my mother cutting the hair of Nicholas, can't remember their last name, but that's Carla Ford. That's my classmate, and she wanted her son to have his first haircut done by my mother.
It's just wonderful. I wanted you to mention my sister's on the call, so we know Carla Ford. Full circle. That's wonderful.
Mhm.
That's wonderful. Your mother could have cut my hair when I, wore it short. That's wonderful. So let's go on to, all have done some traveling. I can see. It seems to me that we have a picture of you and your mother traveling. Tell us about that. Chick, you want to tell
Mhm.
us about this?
Yeah. And we've gone to different places. The one trip that stood out the most is when me, Chris, and mom traveled to Scotland. And the way that came about is my mom received a mailing for anyone with the last name Montgomery. And so we joined a tour group, and we traveled all the country of Scotland within 9 days, 2 days to travel. And this photograph that you're seeing, that we were at a very old castle. Part of it was built, like say, 16th century, and then other parts of the building was built in other centuries, 17, 18. So the man and the woman in the photograph, they own the castle, and in order for the upkeep, they will always have tours, and that would help for income to keep the upkeep. But that particular trip is just so memorable. Being that's first time, going to Europe for Chris and I. My mom had been before, and just seeing other parts of the country, other parts of Scotland it was just so beautiful, and a very, very great trip that we love.
That's wonderful. You said that your mother, the name Montgomery, that was what
Hmm.
sparked is that the beginning of the trip?
Hmm.
What did that have to do with the trip?
Yeah. So we found out this particular company, they do genealogy. So we were able to go to this, I forget the exact area, but we went to the ruins of Lord Montgomery, who lived there, and that's where the name came from.
Yes.
And we also had on the trip people whose last name was Bruce, and they were descendants from Robert the Bruce, who's very important with the history of Scotland.
Oh my goodness.
And everyone else on the trip were white, and it was just and me, Chris, and mom were the only blacks. We weren't really getting into the genealogy. We just learned about it, but everybody else on the other trip they were learning and digging into their genealogy. Let's see, the other last name was Frazier. So we went to the town that was the originator of the last name Frazier. So yeah,
Okay.
that's how that came about.
Oh, very nice. Nice. What a nice story. What a nice story. Okay, so well, this is a little bit later. You went there, as adults. But let's come back to college. Let's come back to college. You graduated from Shaker High School, and you venture off to college. So we'll go, Crystal first, because you just gave us your Scotland story. So Crystal, tell us about where you went to college when you finished Shaker High School.
I'm gonna say one little thing about Scotland.
Yes.
We found out that the Montgomerys had a tartan. So we all bought a crest that I have hanging on my wall, was packed away now, of the Montgomery tartan, and a picture of a Scotland person holding up a head that he just cut off. So it's very gruesome, but that's what they did there.
All right. Another time.
Yeah.
If I had a picture of it, I'd show it to you, but it's packed away too with the pictures. So
yeah,
I went.
That's all we heard the whole time was people getting beheaded. Okay, that's all. All right, go ahead, Chris.
Interesting. Okay. This was not what we talked about, folks, when we were talking the other day.
I know.
That is great. Absolutely. Okay.
I went to the University of Cincinnati. Well, actually, directly out of school from high school, I went to Kent State for 1 year because I didn't get the money to send to Cincinnati for application fee to be able to get into Cincinnati. And by the time I got it, it was too late. Couldn't get in. So I just went to Kent State. So after Kent State for a year, I set out 1 quarter and went to Tri-C. So I got to Cincinnati in the winter of 1977. So the friends that I made there, I always remember, you got here late, didn't you? You got here late. Yes, I got here late, but I'm here.
Yes. and
So,
the history.
yes. So my major was architecture, and I took up some electives at Tri-C, which counted going to UC. But then I left the main campus and went downtown to the technical school for architecture and engineering degree. And it's started off with being, you go 2 years for associates and then another 2 years for your bachelor's. But it was too technical, not exactly what I expected with architecture. But I did excel in the drawing. I had no problems there. But one thing about architecture, it's one thing to be able to pay your tuition, room and board, but with design and art, you have another expense of fees for all your artwork. We couldn't keep up with everything. So eventually I quit and came back to Cleveland. But I did go back to school right when my mother wanted to go to Scotland. I said, Mother, it's time to go to school now. You come up with a Scotland trip. So here I go. I start class late again. But the professors that I told, who noticed I wasn't there at the first class, where were you? Well, I was in Scotland. Oh, great. So everyone loved that. So, it went over well.
Yes. Oh, that's wonderful.
I'll let my sister talk, and then I can go back to Cincinnati and tell you some things that weren't so great.
Sure. And where did you go, Chick?
Yeah, so I started out at Ohio State, and I was an art major. And I wanted to go to the art school, Columbus College of Art and Design, downtown Columbus, but I wasn't ready yet right after high school. So at Ohio State, it was just a good stepping stone. And I really liked being there and living on campus, and, was an art major, and we had to take, all kinds of classes, but that was a good time there. And so then when I did transfer to Columbus College of Art and Design, that was when I was able to be an advertising major and focus on graphic design and learning marketing. And then we also had to take, even at the art school, we still had to take English, a science, English and a science class. And then we also had different segments of art class that you could take, but wouldn't have to be your major. For example, fashion design or illustration. So, and at that time, everything was manual. You know, we had to buy all our supplies and always physically put our projects together. It was a really, really good time, good influence of what I wanted to do in my career, being creative. It was just it was just great. And you know, as I got into my art career, you know, everything starts getting into the computer, and you know, you know, so being able to switch over from manual to the computer, everything was gradual to do that, but it's like it really helps as far as being tech savvy, because you start out with the real old big block computers that are, you know, harder to use, and just keep gradually getting into using more modern computers as things get technically better. And you know, which helps when you get up into you know, getting closer to retirement age, that you know will be more tech savvy and understand what you need to do in order to, you know, make it in this world. So yeah.
That's interesting. And you know, that's interesting too, that your interest in that started early. So you knew you wanted to be at the Columbus School of Art and Design.
Yes.
You know, I think about art majors, I always think of students walking around with very big portfolios, black, you know, you could always tell a student on campus, you know, they'd be
oh yeah, and if we didn't have in a portfolio, we're carrying like this big pad. And then this little case with all our, you know, the pencils and art supplies.
we could spot you a mile away.
yes.
That's good. So so Crystal, you're an architect. Chick, you have your degree in art. So
right, and then our brother Ed was into was a mechanical engineer, Chris?
Industrial design.
Industrial design. So we're all three of us,
yeah,
you know, artsy fartsy. Yes.
Oh wow. Oh wonderful. Here's the family. Here's the family when they were little people.
Yes, I think this is Christmas 1960.
Okay, nice.
And we hadn't moved to Shaker yet.
Oh, okay.
Actually, we lived in 3 different places before we got to Shaker Heights.
Where in Cleveland?
In Cleveland. Because my parents, they were from Kentucky, and I never got a straight answer from either one of them, especially my mother. Why did we move to Cleveland from Kentucky? Because none of our other family did, except her younger brother. He came with us too.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Your parents. So both you still have family in Kentucky?
Yes. A lot of it, yes.
Oh, okay. Well,
so I think my mother must have heard about Shaker Heights as we were moving from place to place to place. So until they found a house.
Nice. And John, show us the house, the family house.
This is the Shaker Mansion.
Here we are. Ludgate
Mansion.
Yeah, so you know, so tell us the story about, you know, about the house, because now, Crystal, I know you live in the house.
Yeah, I live in the house. I'm trying to fix it up. Actually, the house is going to be 100 years old in 3 years.
Okay.
So I'll see how much I can get done those 3 years. We have to have 100-year-old party.
Do you have a goal? So you've also lived in the house, Chick, right? I mean, I keep saying the house. So
I moved back in 2007, and the house was empty, and I needed a place to live. And my mom said, "Well, you know, move there." And when I moved my stuff into the house, it felt like it was my house. It didn't feel weird. And so this was July 2007, and then 6-7 months later, our mom passed in February of 2008.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and she had a house in Orange, so that's where she was living.
Yes, and Crystal, you told me about why your mother wanted to move, you know, away from.
Yes, I did. Yes, she wanted to move out of this house into the other one that she bought because it had an acre of land that the
Mhm.
house sat on, and she liked cutting the grass, and it reminded her of living on the farm that she grew up on. You know, having a lot of space around and
Mm.
not cooped up. You know, living close together, like being in a city.
Right, that's nice.
Yeah,
She like Miss Kentucky. She
yeah,
missed that
miss the farm life. Yeah,
farm
Yes.
life.
so she was
She found
Hmm.
trying to find something with some land,
found it
and
close.
she found some nice neighbors out there too.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
nice.
She went and bought her a John Deere lawnmower and just was riding away on it.
All right. All right. She was
And
having
then and then asked us, "Don't you want to ride it too?"
okay.
I
I
said,
wrote it. I wrote it. I cut grass with the John Deere. I've done that.
uh,
Yep.
I skipped it.
Okay. Okay. That wasn't your thing. That was not your thing. But
No,
your mother was happy. That's all that really counts. Your mother was happy.
yeah, she got the nephews to ride it.
Okay. Yes. Yes. So in terms of your careers, so Chick, what have you
Mhm.
done in terms of the work that you did after you finished school?
Okay. Um, let's see. I worked mostly doing print
Mhm.
um, because the internet hadn't started yet.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
let's see. It did business to business magazines. It was always deadlines, being
Mm.
creative, always had brainstorming meetings, um, marketing, and worked, at different companies around the Cleveland area. Um, and then when I get more and more into the internet, a lot of the print jobs were starting to go away.
Mm. Mhm.
And then it got to the point that, in order to work, you had to know code,
Mm.
in order to do websites. And really wasn't getting into that, learning code, because it was like learning a new language. And I did take a code class at Tri-C, and that was like one of the hardest things I've ever done, because it was like learning a new language.
Mhm.
Um, so I was not really making it that well full time, still doing graphic design. So I had temporary jobs or part-time jobs with other companies, and I had started working at National City Bank also part-time. And as things went on where it was less and less graphic design, and made the decision that I would go full-time with National City, and transition into another career.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm doing now, is financial work. And I think growing up in Shaker, when we have to learn everything, um, including math and science, and even though I wasn't that great in math and science, I learned enough so that if I had to transition to a career in in the financial world, I was able to do so.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. But you told me that there are some things that you still use your artistic talents
Hmm.
at work.
Oh, yes. Sometimes things come up where they need signage. Um, there was one position where I worked on a schedule for all our team members, and made up a bulletin board and had all our schedules posted,
Hmm.
color coded, using, big fonts, or, something that was nice and visual.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like, when people learn that I have the artistic background, then it seems like anytime that, it was like a different project where we needed a flyer, or, as I gave an example of doing a schedule on a bulletin board, it was me, that would do these extra projects. And then, every once in a while, a little freelance project would come up in between. And then as I started getting more and more involved with Neighbor Night, well, some people knew about the graphic design background. So next thing you know, well, can we have a flyer doing this? And can we, then we did the flower distribution. So it did the postcard for that. So it's been fun helping out people with flyers and doing the postcard.
Oh, that's fun. I remember Kevin telling me you had artistic talents, and you just go, oh, okay, that's nice. Now I really know. Now
Mhm.
I know
Right.
about where that all comes from.
Mhm.
And Crystal, you work at NASA. You work with a contractor at NASA. Tell us about your work and what you do, to use your architectural talents.
Well, when I went back to school, I guess I had a little talk with myself because I knew that if I wanted to be an architect, I would have to go back and get my degree. But I also realized that there was a lot of modern architecture going on
Mm.
and that I didn't really get into. So historic preservation was starting to become bigger and bigger, more well known, and people were, abiding by um, the rules that you have for historic preservation. So I knew that when I went back, I was going to specialize in working on old buildings. So, so I became a historic preservationist consultant when I went to NASA. But before I did that, I worked at several places, architectural firms in Cincinnati. And one in particular really gave me my start of working on an old building and doing drawings and coming up with a new use and trying to figure out, because you're working with existing conditions, so you just can't plan everything or move this wall a little bit bigger when you're working with existing conditions. So you had to figure things out within. So that was a challenge. But there was one project I worked on. It's like I had 3 or 4 months straight of just field measuring. The place was so big.
Mm.
But at NASA, because it is a government agency, which all government agencies should have a cultural resource manager
Mm.
or a historic preservation person, because the government has a responsibility of abiding by the rules per the Historic Preservation Act that was passed in 1966. The government was supposed to be, the ones doing things the right way and showing everyone else how to do it.
Okay.
So having the architectural background, especially in historic preservation, I can pick out character defining features. NASA doesn't have a lot of that. They're kind of basic, but still, I look at things with an architectural background eye, whereas a person who didn't have my background would see things differently or possibly would miss things or not say, stop. This really is an undertaking that we have to consult with the State Preservation Office.
Mm.
So just about almost everything we do, we have to consult with the state. But you get to a point where you can write agreements. So I can write agreements now
Mm.
where we can kind of streamline the process. So I've also created historic district guidelines for our center. We have two historic markers because our campus is eligible for being on the register.
Ah.
We don't want it on the register, but it is eligible.
Mm.
And I created historic district tours. We don't seem to have those anymore, but
Well, they'll come back.
well, that depends on the management.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we do have new construction out there also.
Oh,
So I
really?
have a nice big section in my guidelines about how new construction should look.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
It
What
has
else
to
do I
look
do there?
similar to what, and how big is the plant? I mean, NASA's massive.
Our campus here in Cleveland, it's about 307 acres.
Mm.
Then we have space out in Sandusky, which is 64,000 acres.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
And then we have the location in Sandusky for when we have to do testing that is probably hazardous and also prone to exploding. So we had
Mm.
to get something that had a lot of space around it.
Yes.
So we don't utilize all that space, but we have to have it for, hazardous things for protection, because there are homes that kind of go around some parts of the borderline where we occupy.
Mhm.
Let's
Interesting.
see. And
Well,
then, mhm.
and I just wanted to share, if you could share with us, you recently gave a presentation with the Shaker Historical Society. Just
Yes, I
kind of
did.
plug, because I know the recording, if anybody wanted to look at it, you
Yeah,
know.
they can look at it, and I go over historic preservation, and I point out historic building and how new construction is added to it, because there's things you should do about in addition to an old building. The best place for an addition is on the side. The best place, first one, is in the back, so you don't take away from the historic building. You want the facade and the historic building to always be the most important part.
Mm.
So if you put addition on, it's best if it goes in the back, but it can't always go in the back. Sometimes the client needs it to go on the side. And if it goes on the side, you kind of want it to still protect the facade view. So you would put some screening around it, like some shrubbery
Mm.
or maybe a fence or something, just to, so your eye always stays with the main part. You always want the historic part to be the most important part.
Mm. Okay, everybody, we have our lesson tonight. You heard everybody hear that?
I give a few more on the talk
Yeah.
that I did with the
Yes,
Shaker
with the
Historical
Shaker
Society.
Historical Society. So that was part
And
of
even I call that the Historic Preservation 101. There's a lot more to it.
I'm sure that's very interesting. And like I was saying, that's where we met, the Cleveland Restoration Society. And I knew that you were an expert in historical preservation just by sitting in the room with you. I was like, who is this person here? And I had no idea. It's just wonderful that we came together, at neighbor night. Tell us a little about, we'll go back, to your childhood or whatever time it was, your church experiences. Because I understand that you went to Plymouth Church, which is right here in Shaker.
Right.
So,
Yes.
go ahead.
That's not where we started. We
Yeah,
started at
right.
Oh,
St.
yes.
Timothy Church on Carnegie.
Carnegie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
traditional
Right.
Baptist church.
Okay.
And
Yeah, traditional Baptist church. And
yeah.
we got into going to church a lot better when we became ushers.
Oh,
So we were, elementary, I think it's still elementary or close to junior high when we switched. But we were ushers and it was a lot of fun. We got to know the other ushers who were our age. And we didn't always have to listen to the sermon so
okay.
much.
You don't have
It's a little bit harder for when you're younger. You can listen to it as you get older.
Yes.
So we went on, my mother changed churches and we went to Plymouth Church and had the culture shock.
Okay.
We were probably the only Black family that was there.
Mhm.
The Gardners, Paula Gardner and her family, they went to Plymouth Church, but they never came. So they weren't no help. They'd only show up on Easter.
Okay.
Now, even though it was culture shock, the people were very, very nice.
Mm.
It was like, and we were nice. It's like, I guess conversations didn't happen right away. They had to grow over time.
Mhm.
And of course, we got older and we started spending more time with the youth program, which
Oh.
that didn't go very well either.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
no, that didn't work very well.
No, yeah, I agree. Yeah, the youth program is, that's when, we were experiencing I guess racism, but particularly the fact that we lived in the Moreland area and just told, well, that's not really Shaker, that's Cleveland, and so I think I said to you, Don, you can count on church to make sure that they tell you about things that are negative, instead of lifting you up. But this was basically within the youth group, and even though we still participated, even though all that was going on, to me it just made things a bit negative as far as church is concerned. Our mother was very active with church, and I eventually stopped going until I started going to another church when I got into my 30s, and I think it's different, how you can experience church as an adult.
Sure. But your experience, as young people, I mean, now we share those experiences because we're in a different place, a different time. But as young people, it would have been very valuable for others to have known what your experience was and, how you felt, as young people, and it wasn't necessarily very welcoming or didn't feel that way. So I want to ask, does anybody in our audience have questions? Anybody want to have any questions?
And remember, if you're on your phone, you can hit *6 to unmute yourself.
John, is there a way we can see everybody?
Oh, you're not on.
Yep.
No. This is Earlene Hooper in Pennington. I didn't get your status. Are you still at Plymouth Church?
No, we're not.
No.
You're not there. Okay, thank you.
That's right. You guys went to Plymouth, didn't you?
No. We were there a lot and still do. We have friends that
we have friends who are there now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Sam, you walked to Moreland also, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Orlando.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I think you played
So-
football with our brother.
Yeah. Tell us how he's doing. How's Eddie doing?
He lives in Georgia with his family. He's married and he has two boys. They're 32 and 29, something like that. Yeah. So yeah, they're doing good down there.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
All right.
Good. My bad.
Crystal, are you planning to do any preservation? Your house is almost 100 years old.
Yes.
Your house.
So I'm trying to keep it historically correct, whatever changes I make.
Okay.
One of the things that I will do is the exterior doors, the side door and the back door,
Mhm.
to get new doors, but they have to resemble the old doors. They have to have the panels that are horizontal, like our old one was.
Oh, okay.
And we still have an old door in the bathroom. So it, reminds you what the other doors used to look like.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm thinking, the other thing I did, this isn't exactly historic, but neither was our lattice, what we had. I changed the lattice on the front of the house.
Hmm.
That's the part from the porch down
Right.
to the ground that you have the, diagonal. I changed it to be brick. It's
Hmm.
a brick lattice with, like every other brick, has a hole, so you have air still coming in to protect the port from rotting. You have to have air come in.
Hmm.
So that's not exactly historic, but I had to have something where I wouldn't have to keep replacing the lattice all the time.
Right. I understand that.
And I had to go before the architectural review board. So
Oh,
they approved it. I had no trouble getting by them. They were
okay.
great.
Well, you knew what you were talking about.
I did, and I provided all the information that they would need to make a judgment.
Yeah, oh, that's interesting. I mean, all of those, I remember, this is, personal point. I remember when I got rid of my back door. You
Mhm.
probably would have gotten upset. But anyway, I had an original back door. The house was in 1926, and it had this beautiful brass plate on the door. Believe me, I took that off before they took the door. I have it. They took the door. I felt like I was sitting outside in the middle of the winter. I mean, there was no insulation. It was just, and it was one of those, whichever ways, the horizontal panels. But I took the doorknob. I kept it.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, it's in the back of the house, so the facade is still protected. You did okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? Nobody has questions? Oh, here's one. Can Crystal talk more about work as a member of the Landmark Commission?
Oh, certainly. I started being a member of the Landmark Commission for Shaker Heights in January 2020. So we went a couple months before the pandemic happened. But being on the Landmarks Commission is very nice, and I find it rewarding. And with the projects that residents want to come in and have us comment on, some people are very prepared and aware of their historic building and want to do the right thing. Then we have some that I'm not doing that. So those are the harder ones to control or get them to do what you ask them to do, because finances is part of it. If someone doesn't have the means, then they can't fix the house up as well as it should be. Then you ask the people, did you know it was a landmark house before you bought it? You should have known what you were getting into.
Right. Probably didn't know what they were getting into.
Well, some did and tried to pretend like they didn't. So that was my first one. First one was a real good one. But all the others have been pretty good. And let me see. I'll tell you about one. It was the gas station at Moreland. It's the gas station at Shaker Square, the one we pass by all the time.
What is it, a Shell station?
It's a BP.
Oh,
it's a BP now.
The one over on.
It's Larchmere and Moreland,
Larchmere.
South Moreland.
I haven't been around so long. I can't remember the name of the streets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they came before us. I guess I'm not sure if I'm supposed to talk about the project, but that's one of them. So that was nice to talk about and give some guidance.
Okay. Interesting.
Just wanted to upgrade the gas station.
Well, I don't know. Am I supposed to talk about this, Megan? She's online too. She's on the Landmark Commission too. I don't want to tell any secrets I'm not supposed to.
Yeah, well, maybe you shouldn't say anything else. We know, we'll look.
Okay.
It's
Megan
okay.
says it's okay.
Oh, she said it's public
Yeah,
record.
because it's public record. Okay. I'll tell you all about it now. The BP station wanted to put canopies up because the customers were complaining about pumping gas in bad weather. They weren't covered. So we had to go over what those canopies were going to look like. So some of the proposals were the columns being white and the canopy over it was white. So I thought that looked too much like a white elephant. And they had another proposal where the columns were brick and then the canopy part was white. So that was a little bit better because it kind of went with other buildings on that same corner. The old Parkview Federal, it was brick and with white trim. There's another, I think, apartment building that's brick with white trim. And the gas station is brick with white trim.
Mhm.
So the owners were very good and they brought in, I think their construction guy, he was on the call too. So they were concerned people because they knew it was a landmark, historic building, and they wanted to, do what was right. So they were great people to work with. I wish I could do more.
Oh, that's nice.
So we all concluded on what we thought was the best way for them to go, and they were great with it.
Okay. So we
So
have to,
whenever they get started, we'll see how it turns out.
and
Oh,
when
definitely.
if we see canopies, we'll be like, oh, we remember talking about that
Yes.
on the history.
Yes.
We'll look for that. We'll look for that. So let me ask you this question. Did you have a question, Sam? Did
I
I
was
hear?
gonna ask Chick a little bit more about her graphic design. Does she have a website with her graphic design stuff on it?
I don't. It's because I really have not been into the graphic design like I used to,
Okay.
because I'm more into the financial world, working at PNC Bank.
Okay.
But Sam, you know where I am because I've done a couple of flyers for you.
Sure. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Hear what he
Mhm.
said. You know where I am. So you can call it Chick. So
You
what
can
else?
walk. You can walk over our house.
Right, right, right.
Always,
Yeah.
always in need. Always in need. Yes.
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 Yes. So Chick, what do you do in your spare time?
Let's see. Before COVID, I played in the handbell choir.
Oh,
And
nice.
having the music background, I know I kept up with the sight reading. And so this was like a good musical outlet because even though we went to the musical settlement, I'm not a singer, so that it was good. It's good being in an ensemble and I've been doing that for a long time. And so we haven't been together since COVID. And I can't wait till we get back together because it's always good to have that musical outlet.
Yeah.
And as far as being involved with the community of Shaker, I took the Citizens Patrol Academy class back in 2017, and that was a very great experience learning about the police department in Shaker, and we learned everything as far as how they do their job, how they deal with drunk drivers. We even talked about use of force, the police, the fire department, youth. So I recommend it if anyone hasn't taken the course, that's like a good thing to do because even though it's within, Shaker, it's still, it's still talking about the whole, United States and how the police force works. And Al is part of that. So, I've seen him at meetings. And I also like to, go out walking and anything cultural and social. So I'm ready to get back into it as soon as we can.
Yes, well, the weather's nice now. Maybe you won't have a group to walk with, but the weather has changed. So
Oh, I'm actually out in the weather in all types.
nice. Okay, good.
All 4 seasons I'm out in it.
Good for you.
Yes.
I'm a fair weather fan,
Right.
The weather is nice. So Crystal, what do you do in your spare time?
Well, I tell people what I do at my time, where there isn't any spare time.
All right.
Well, either I'm making something, I'm fixing something, or I'm cleaning something.
All right.
Those are the 3 things I do. Now, if I find some time in between those, because for a while there, when my mother had her other house, I had my house in Cincinnati. Then we have this house here in Cleveland. So I was like, I have 3 houses to try to take care of. So finally the house in Orange sold. And the one in Cincinnati, I think I had it for another 7 years. I was running back and forth to Cincinnati to Cleveland. So I finally got it sold. But I did make drapes for both houses in Cincinnati and this house here. So I do window treatment.
Oh, no.
And I did some window treatment while I was living in Cincinnati. But then when I was going to sell it, I made some new window treatment.
Wow.
So and then this past summer, I made masks
Mm-hmm.
because they were asking for, home sewers to make masks. So I got up, I'm a home sewer, and I made masks for the Cleveland Clinic and UH Hospital and for the city of Shaker Heights.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
So if you see any African print or
Mhm.
some snazzier looking masks, those are
Okay.
mine.
Those are yours. All righty. All righty. Everybody still has to wear
Yeah.
their mask. That's for
And
sure.
then I try to play tennis as much as I can. I would take walks over to the high school, and that's where we learned to play tennis. That's one of the things that me and my sister did. I think in junior high school, my mother signed us up for tennis lessons, to give us something to do so we're not sitting around the house all the time because she's working on Saturdays. So we
Yeah.
took tennis lessons. So I've stayed with it, and I
Oh,
still like it. And NASA had a tennis league. I
mm.
got in the NASA league,
Tennis
so they
leg.
had different categories. So one year, my partner and I, we won the trophy.
Oh boy. Wow. Okay. Okay. That's great. That's great. And great that you're still keeping up with it. That's wonderful.
Mhm.
So does anybody have any questions before we
Just a
wrap?
comment.
Yes. go ahead.
Crystal, you said how you graduated from the University of Cincinnati, got 2 um, Bearcats that just came out of there, 2 of my grandsons. But when they went down there, and I heard you allude to it, I told them Cincinnati is like being in the South.
Mm.
Yes.
Watch yourself. And you alluded to that for a moment. You want to expound on it?
Yes, yes, yes. When
It's
I
the
went
South.
to Cincinnati my first time, I was a whole lot younger. And, I grew up being quiet and shy. But when you get faced with racism, you can't remain quiet or shy or anything because there are people that will run over you. So one of the main things that I remember where I guess racism hit, hard and first was we had grants when we went to school. So when I get to Cincinnati, I go into the financial aid to find out if our grants were in place. So I go to class. But I wasn't officially registered. So I had to go to the financial aid office, and they would never have the records. They would say they couldn't find them. You didn't do this right, or you never sent them in, and we don't have them. And I tell you, there was this one lady that told us to come back later in the day, and she would help us. So here it is, 5 o'clock, 6, 7 o'clock at night. One lady in the financial aid will come in and help all the African American students get the financial aid, the grants in place like they should be. So here it is, every quarter, have to go through this. So it's like you can't study at night like everybody else is because you're sitting in the financial aid office trying to get your records, financial aid straightened out. I mean, it was just I couldn't believe it. So when I went back, when you go to the drop and add, that's what you did in the 70s. You did it in person, so there's always long lines. So
Yes.
they had all these people, to help the students. And I tell you, they were the worst people. They would sit there, talk to each other, have personal conversations, didn't want to help the students. Line was out the wazoo. And when you get up to their counter, then they still didn't want to help you. They talked smart to you. You didn't want to help. You didn't want to help the students, no matter what color you were. I don't know where these people came from. So when I went back, there was one lady, I remember, I recognized her. She was still there. So they still had to drop an ad, they had to do in person. They hadn't quite switched over to the computer, doing the same exact thing, sitting there having a personal conversation, didn't want to help the students. So lucky me, I get to go up to her counter and tell her a thing or two. I said, I remember you from when I was in school before, and you're doing the same thing, it's just going on. And she looked at me. So the second time around, I was ready for him.
That was when you got over being shy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Because actually I went to UC because they had the co-op program. That was the main reason for going.
Mhm.
So when I started co-oping, I had more money then because I had a chance to make money. And then the grant money I had was split into 2 quarters versus 3.
Mhm.
So that worked out very well. That was the first time. When I went back the second time, my mother said, "You're on your own. Don't look for me for any money." So I worked at home improvement stores, starting with Boulder Square and moved over to Home Depot and then put myself through school.
Okay. Wow.
So any of these young people that said, "I don't have any money to go to school," have them come talk to me.
Good job. Yeah.
One quick thing is Lee K just put, we've
Yes.
got to remember Cincinnati on the other side of the river is Kentucky, Mitch McConnell country.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
That's all I
Yeah.
had to say.
Yeah.
But also we
Well-
had Mr. Boehner over in Cincinnati.
Right.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He was on Sunday morning this morning.
Oh, he
Oh,
was.
yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
Look
Yeah.
at
Yeah,
that.
well,
Oh, yeah.
Cincinnati is the Republican capital of the state of Ohio, and that's why blacks can never win a statewide office because of down south Cincinnati.
All righty.
And actually we were born in Kentucky.
Oh, okay.
And and moved to Cleveland like 1960. So I just when you think about the migration, I just think my parents were looking for better opportunities and jobs. And then my mom, definitely wanted us to get a good education, and probably knew about Shaker, and then my father was in the service, so with the Montgomery GI Bill, we're able to get the house and on Ludgate. So that's where we landed.
Yes. Well, that's a wonderful story.
So with the war on poverty, my mother knew about the grants, her being a single mom. So she was on top of it with the grants. She filled out them papers for all of us. That's how we got through school.
Mm. And I had
Seal, we were born in Lexington, Kentucky.
oh, did Sue ask a question?
Yeah, I saw it come up in the chat.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, we have a lot of relatives there,
Uh-huh.
so we always go back for family reunions. And
mhm.
when we were younger, we would stay with my grandfather and grandmother on their farm, and they
Mm.
didn't have running water. So those are always great stories when we were younger.
Yeah,
But
we would
yeah,
go
we
down.
love going to Kentucky and seeing different landscape and having the family reunions.
Yes.
Yeah,
I have
we used-
relatives in Lexington, Montgomerys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Montgomery. Uh-oh.
We do
Yeah,
not
it's
know the Montgomery side of our family. So we
Right.
could be related and don't know it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, you all need to have a conversation.
I
Yeah.
have to talk to you, both of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
interesting.
Mhm.
And here's a question from Mel. What type of new projects are both of you considering working on? New projects? Any new projects?
No new projects. I'm just ready to get back into my routine of doing what I've been doing. That's my thing. No new projects right now.
Right. And it sounded like Crystal was like, okay, what day is it? I'm doing this today.
Yeah, I know. I've had a whole lot of new projects this year. Let's see. It started with well, actually, I shouldn't tell you that one.
Okay.
The one that's gonna reveal itself. It's coming.
All righty.
But doing the Shaker Historical Society talk, and then I got asked to teach kitchen design at Tri-C for
Oh,
2
cool.
days to intercede in someone else's class and teach kitchen design. I have to do it. The last class will be tomorrow.
Mm.
And someone asked me to do a class talking about Cleveland landmarks. So I did a presentation for that. So I'm not sure why people were thinking of my name suddenly.
Uh-oh. Yes.
And being part of the Cleveland Restoration Society, that keeps me busy. It
Mhm.
slowed down a little bit, thank goodness. This summer I was hopping because they had a person leave them in their will 8 houses on Newton Avenue, that's close to Cleveland Clinic.
Mm.
So we had to go through all the motions of if we should accept the gift, and if we did, what it would encounter for the organization.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I did, go over and look at those houses and take photographs and do a presentation to the whole board. So it helped make the decision to accept the gifts, and we did accept them. So we're trying to get 2 empty ones renovated and get renters in.
Oh, wow. And Lee said that little cute street, Newton. Is it? a
Yep.
short street?
It
Oh,
is little and it is cute. The cutest houses, craftsman style. They're probably already 100 years old.
Mhm.
see, we're going to have to take a tour around Cleveland, folks. We have to drive around and look at all of these different places. And I wanted to ask John if you would put up the paver. So I don't know if everybody knows that maybe there was a time when everybody could have had a paver. Here it is. Tell us a bit about this paver.
Well,
Yeah, this was with the Shaker Town Center when it was being built, and for funding. And was it for funding, Chris?
yeah, I think it was for a fundraiser. You had
Yeah,
to you buy your
fundraiser.
brick.
Yeah,
And
yeah, Shaker residents could buy a brick, so that's what my mom did, and had it engraved with our names.
That's so nice. We're gonna go look for it.
and so are we, because I
Yeah.
can't remember where it is either.
Right, I was gonna say, I don't remember any papers with people's names on them, but we're gonna go on a little tour of Shaker Town Center and find your paper.
Yeah.
John, were there any other pictures that you have that we can show before we close? Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Goodness, how could I forget? Tell us this story about these two pictures.
Okay. So when we both were, back living in the house, and we were up in the attic cleaning things out, and Crystal was able to get up in there, and she found these two old photos up in the attic in a crawl space. So we've had these in the house, and we're still trying to get them identified with the Shaker Historical Society. But yeah, these photographs were up in the attic when we first lived in the house as young children, and then discovered them. Was it like what, 2008, Chris?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. That's wonderful.
Right. So we're thinking it's probably the first owner. It could be their parents or grandparents. Yeah.
That'll be a fun search.
Yeah.
Who
So-
they belong to.
So we have all the past owners on the cards that Shaker Heights keeps. So that's the first place to start.
Yes.
And somebody asked me, do I do drapes? I do not sew for anyone anymore. In the days when I was in between being in college and out of college, I had a little sewing business going. So I have sewn for other people, and it taught me not to sew for anybody anymore.
All righty. All righty.
Okay.
There you go. All right. Anybody have any more questions? This was wonderful.
There's someone else in the chat.
Megan had said something, but I didn't catch it.
Oh, let me see. Crystal and Chick, send me what you know. I'm happy to research those photos. Oh, that's
Okay.
Oh, okay, good.
It's a photo.
And also, Megan, I want to go through the photos that you have at the of Moreland at the library. So I'll drop in one day.
I think you'll find the most of those, because I saw them already. It's mostly my class or some people a little bit younger.
Oh, okay.
You're too old.
That's the older sister. Okay, everybody. This was fun. This was so much fun. The Montgomerys. I had asked actually Chick when you were saying your story would be very similar until you went to college. I was like, oh, are you all twins? I'm learning so much about you. I'm like, oh, okay, tell me more. This was
right.
Lives have been just wonderful to hear. And so much how we benefited, even that you've come through the Shaker schools. And from elementary through high school, and the influences that the school district has had on your lives. And you all are artists. Just we have a lot of artists in Moreland. We really do. We really do. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank everybody for being here and being in the company of Chiquita and Crystal Montgomery, who have shared their story with us. And here's my commercial here. So if anyone is interested, and I'm encouraging anyone who's with us who would like to be a guest on Witness to History, here's my number, 216-509-4018, or email. Either way, please step up. Please step up. Let us know if you'd like to tell your story. We're always interested in Absolutely. Everybody has a story. So
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, John, and thanks
you.
everybody for
You.
coming on the Zoom.
yes, thank you all. Everybody have a wonderful evening. Have a
And-
good
Me
week.
too.
On-
Thank you.
Thank the Jordan sisters for joining us because they grew up with us.
They grew up with us, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
we did. And it's been very impressive.
Oh, nice.
Thank
Very
you,
impressive.
thank you.
I did want to say one quick thing. I started just keep quiet, but I do remember my father saying, he knew Crystal and Daquita's mom. They used to bowl together sometimes. But my father, who was a very critical person in his older age, he did start going to their mother to get his hair cut. And he made a comment saying, Nan is the best barber I have ever had in my life.
Wow.
And so I just never forgot that. And I just want to make a comment about that.
Well, thank you, Lynette.
Thank you, Lynette.
You're welcome.
So
But
nice.
I'm very impressed with you all.
We have some more barbershop stories to tell you, but not today.
All right, for the next time. All righty, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.